This is Real Race Talk from Texas. It's the Revved Up Sports Show. Here's Bobby Chaffee and Rodney Rodriguez.
Woke up to the sound of gravel flying pedal down.
Hashtag Real Race Talk from Texas. This is the Revved Up Sports Show on your Monday race day. And they're still going at it, and we're still social distancing up north. I'm Rodney Rodriguez, Bobby Chaffee down south. Bobby, well, you know, just like we were talking about, Randall King's going to bring us in here as we get started. A little bit of good Texas country right there. That's really good stuff. Check out Randall King if you're a Texas country fan and looking for good stuff. But trying to find time to schedule these damn shows and these NASCAR races during the week, man. What a mess.
Yeah, you never know what you're going to get. Obviously, there's been a little bit of a rain delay there in Talladega already, so that kind of pushed it into the start of the show. But who knows? Maybe we'll be able to dissect it right there towards the very end. Yeah,
we're getting down to the end, so I'm sure that's what it's going to be go time there. As you see Tyler Reddick, that would be a nice little surprise right there if he's able to pull that one out. But of course, this is all rain delayed from yesterday, and we'll just roll along. So everything good. Coming up on the show here at 7:10, we're going to be joined by Mark Fryer. Mark Fryer, of course. The last name right there, synonymous. That is the son of Freddie Fryer, the father of Jared Fryer, and looking forward to that one. I think that's going to be really cool. And that's one, Bobby, where we've kind of been, when I reached out to Mark, I'm like, man, we've wanted to talk to you for a long time, but it's like, should we or shouldn't we? You know?
Yeah, definitely. But, never a bad time to have some of these elder statesmen on. I mean, obviously, we consider Mark one of the elder statesmen of the sport. He's got a lot of insight, a lot of memories, lots of good stuff to share.
Yeah, he'll definitely jump on there and tell us a lot of good things about Freddie. And obviously, you know, we miss Freddie more than, you know, it's just such a sad thing that he's no longer with us, but just the legend that was Freddie Fryer. It'll be neat to talk to Mark. So, Bobby, your thoughts on this race here so far? I don't know if anybody gives a damn about the race or not, but, you know, whether it's right or wrong, I do. And this hadn't been too bad.
I mean, it's been a Penske show for a majority of the day for those that hopefully don't spoil it for those that are still trying to watch it. But definitely been showing the prowess, the Ford power, the Penske power, been up front, although a little bit of shake-up here towards the end happening right now. But we'll get everything all shook up and ready to go.
Yeah, you would think that at some point that there's probably going to be some sort of big one or something maybe here towards the end of it. I don't know. They managed to beat the weather today, or beating it here at the end. They weren't beating it earlier because obviously we're in rain delay. That's why everything's a little bit thrown off. But hey, as we get fired off here and got some race results, we'll try to get all of those in. Continue to send those revvedupsportshow@gmail.com, and we'll get those out and about. But got to give some big love to everybody over at the Texas Short Track Racing Series with H&P. That was a hell of a presentation put together, and a big race on Texas, man. Bobby, you told me that stuff was going to look cool. Damn.
I haven't had a chance to watch the replay yet, but they definitely they did multi-camera angles, and that new software they're trying to use definitely made a difference. I'm sure.
Oh my goodness, and that's something that Gina had talked about for a while, that she wanted to try to get something like that put in place. And I mean those guys, I mean Chris and the bunch, I mean those boys. Man, that's a home run right there. I mean, we see racing from all around the country on a lot of different platforms and streaming services that do a really, really good job. And, man, those camera angles and all of that stuff, I mean, that was really good. I like that stuff.
Yeah, a couple of the ideas they got from me, but I'm not going to pat myself on the back. It's one thing to have the ideas, and it's another thing to have somebody come out and execute them for you. So that's a good plus right there.
Well, I'll tell you what. I mean, whatever the case was, is just a tremendous job, other than a guy that was running out of voice actually after Revved Up ATX. I don't know what the hell that was all about. Actually, I do know what that's all about. I'll tell you about that later. But it all worked out, and it was just a really great presentation. I think we need to pass along a lot of attaboys or attaladies there to Gina, because I think she's kind of beating herself up over some stuff. And it's not only that it was the first race of the year, but she was trying new ticketing procedures, new registration procedures, and all of this other stuff. And oh, by the way, the COVID. So it was a multitude of stuff that was going on that night, and I think people just aren't aware of it.
Well, I think that's the main thing. You and I have been behind the scenes enough over the years that there are people that will, if it doesn't go completely according to plan, will sometimes freak out. Yeah, sure, there was a little bit of instance of the slow ticketing coming in, but their first night trying to get some stuff in, and any type of an event when you're trying to double check and make sure that the fans are there, taking a little extra time to get the people in the front door probably not necessarily such a bad thing.
Yeah, no, and that was the main thing. And just to kind of give you a little backstory on why we did do that, or why that was done, it was actually what the thinking was. I mean, I'm the biggest advocate. I told the crowd there. I mean, I'm the biggest advocate where, if we say 7 o'clock, it's 7 o'clock. But what the concern was that with the new procedures that were going on, that was causing a little bit of the backup. So that's why that was done. Luckily, we were able to there were things happening there. Luckily, Ivory was there, so she sang a couple of songs that kind of passed that time a little bit better. But I think definitely a step in the right direction. And that place at 75% looked pretty good the other night.
Yeah, there was a good crowd at H&P. Nice to see the people coming out. Pretty good car count. A little low, a little light in the truck, which was surprising to me. But 19 modified showing up, so that's definitely an attaboy to the big modified teams, especially since they're running a doubleheader with the modifieds and Mayhem at Montgomery and Pensacola.
And we got Jimmy Johnson spinning down the Talladega Super Stretch. He goes back up the hill again, and we will have overtime, green, white, checkered coming up as Jimmy Johnson. I tell you, this dude, we talked about it on Saturday. If there's going to be an accident somewhere at this track, he seems to be able to find a way to be a part of it. So we'll have overtime. Blaney, Harvick, well, no longer Johnson. Stenhouse is right there. Stenhouse has been really, really good today. Your thoughts on Ricky?
He's on my fantasy team
mine
today.
Too.
So,
yeah, mine too.
I'm happy that he's doing quite well. Wasn't quite sure what to expect. When it comes to the fantasies and you get to, you try to make some of this stuff work, it's so weird the way that you just kind of just throw it in there, right? I didn't really try to overthink any of my fantasy picks this week because I realized that it's probably really not going to matter.
Yeah, and taking a look at the replay right there, that's not anything. I don't think that's really anything that Jimmy did or anything that Kevin Harvick did. I think that's a situation where you're 197 down the straightaway there, you're going to get in touch with each other, and that seems to be what happened right there. So tough break for 7 time again. Man, the guy can't buy a break when it comes to these things.
No, he can't, but it'll be interesting to see how the way this shakes out. Obviously, they hadn't had a big one yet, so I'll be surprised to see avoided a couple of big ones. The one with Chase Elliott there and Austin Dillon, the fact that it was only those two that were there kind of surprised me. But it'd be interesting to see exactly how the rest of this race shakes out. I don't think there's ever been a big one in overtime.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Big hello there to Joyce Shepard as she checks in. Always like to see Joyce when she jumps on here. Our man Tom McKay, their audiovisual consultations, does a lot of cool stuff over with the horn. So thanks for checking in, you guys. Speaking of the modifieds Mayhem, so really, really good modified count, as Bobby just mentioned there. It was 19 cars, and of course Casey Smith doubles up and wins Modifieds and the Dwarf Car Racing Series at Texas, both of those in pretty fine fashion. But Modifieds Mayhem, Five Flag Speedway on Friday night. It's Kyle Purvis, and then Jeff Letson wins at Montgomery. So Modifieds, man, just when folks start to think about, well, maybe the Modifieds are getting a little lean, a little slow, I think they were all pretty damn well represented across the Southeast here in Texas.
Yeah, I mean, good car count for both of those races there in the Southeast, and then you come over here to H&P. I was actually surprised that there were as many mods as there were, and it was a really competitive race there. For as much as Casey dominated that race, there was still really lots of good competitive stuff. Lots of surprises. Ian Webster coming home with a 4th place finish.
Great run.
That was a good surprise.
Yeah, just an absolutely great run. And David Webster in the trucks. I mean, David Webster is actually the one that put the pass on Polero there at one point, and then has the flat. and he's not able to. He has to get out, but he manages to get his way up back to third. So, really good run there. Your winners: Will Planter in the Eco Stocks, Brandon Gaither in the Supers, the Legacies, David Duck, Robert Barker in the Outlaws, Casey wins the Modifieds and the Dwarf Car Racing Series at Texas, and the old Showstopper. Jake Wright wins the trucks. Bobby, I bet they're still over there at the Holiday Inn. I bet Jake and Bruce, I bet they're still over there.
I bet Bruce has not stopped partying the whole time. I didn't get a chance to see them when I went to the Holiday Inn. I decided to forego the party this time and head up to the room. Had lots of stuff to do on Sunday and on Father's Day.
I got to tell you a funny story. So I did as well. I was tired. I was tired. So I said, you know what? I'm not even going to put that at risk. I'm just going to go straight to the room 240. I'm going to room 240. I had my wife with me. She went down to check out all the action. We get up the next morning. We go down the elevator, and great job, Holiday Inn. They are 2 per trip in the elevator, doing everything they need to be doing. So the elevator opens up as we're making our way out, and there they are. There's Bruce Wright or Jake Wright Racing standing right there at the end. Bruce says, we're looking for you. He said they shut it down at 5. Shut it down at 5 a.m., which is not surprising. So we walk off, and we're driving down the road. Tracy hadn't said a whole lot to me, and she's like, was he serious? I said, oh, yeah. I said, yeah. I guarantee you he was serious. Jeez, what a night. Good stuff.
There he is. He's still chiming in, saying he's still partying. That was a hell of a pass for the lead that Jake did. That was a good solid. I was actually up in the tower. His brother came in from Florida. I actually got to watch part of that race with his brother Chris. So Jake putting on a good show. That's why they call him the Showstopper.
Absolutely, modified race, and you mentioned that, Bobby. Even though Casey was class of the field, obviously right there. But I really liked Paul White. Paul White, a hell of a job as he was right there in the mix, and he looked like he might have something for Casey. And then he has the issues there as well, and he manages to get back up to second. And just a tremendous fight that he had right there with Max Caius, and a good run there for the 148 as well. I really enjoyed the racing was tremendous. I got to tell you, it was good stuff. The Ecos got after it, and Delbert May Legacies. My God, dude. That wall, you ain't got to knock it down, my man. You don't have to knock it down.
And he handled it pretty good, too, waving at the crowd. Obviously, the safety stuff did exactly what it needed to do. And when you have that, it kind of puts a little light on the situation. Dilbert was able to get out of the car and wave to the crowd and
got another big wreck.
Do what it needed to do.
Huge wreck. Sorry to interrupt you, Bobby. We had the 96 and the 37 as they come to the line. Man, that was close at the end. Who is that? Oh, that's the last race. Oh, geez. Oh, wait a minute. That's the last race.
That's the last race.
That's the last race. I'm getting all excited about that. I was like, oh man, the 37 and the 96. Okay, well, there you go. That's live radio. I'll tell you,
right.
We're snake bitten, man. It got us on Saturday. I did get some text about what was going on Saturday. So here's what's happening. So we've been remote since Revved Up ATX came back on the horn. We're actually at Onion Creek, like we talk about, and there's a portable unit that ties us to the station, and the things have been spot on. I mean, it's about a $5,000 worth of equipment, $5,000 piece of equipment, and for some reason, Bobby, that thing Saturday was just taking a dump every 6 minutes. It seemed like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one of those things. You got to love live radio on our show. Love live radio there on the horn. But thanks to our man Sam, he was trying to hold down the fort the best he could under those circumstances.
Yeah, he really was. So we're getting a lot of feedback there. We're talking about Paul White, and of course Paul White. Go to RevvedUpSportsShow.com. We've got the archives. He's been on this program. He is one of the many legends that we've had the fortune of talking to, and talking about Keith and Bill White. I mean, that's just a great racing family, and it was really cool to see there at Houston. Saw a lot of old timers out there. I was talking to a lot of folks that hadn't been out there for a while. They told me, and I met a lot of people that watch his show all the time. That I'd never had the pleasure to meet him in person. So really cool.
Yeah, I had the same problem, issue, whatever you want to call it. When I was in there checking in, somebody goes. When I checked in, they go, why do I recognize your name? I'm like, because you probably have seen me on the Revved Up Sports Show that Gina's been on a couple of times. They said, Oh yeah, I watch that thing all the time.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. That was pretty cool. So good to see all those folks back out. And again, July 4th will be the next night out there for racing. Independence Day Spectacular, and everybody did a really good job of the distancing and hanging around in the groups that they're supposed to hang in, and so forth and so on. So really good job there. Quickly, I-37. They were racing this week, and again with the Race on Texas, 4 live broadcasts on Speed Pass the other night. So that's pretty damn impressive. In the factory stocks, Alan Torres. In the modifieds, Rick Green. Franco Krulik. In the late models, the sport mods, Chris Swinson. Adam Tracy wins in the tuners. So, yeah, good night. So, actually, here we go again. And it's Happy Harvick up on the point, and he'll probably win.
2 to go.
Yeah, we could still have another big one here as they get set to go. Stenhouse up the track right there. And here comes the sleeping giant, which is number 13. watch number 13, Ty Dillon, trying to jump down in there in the bottom. But the Pride of Prosper, Texas, riding in second place, Bobby. How about that? Coming down to the white flag. Next flag's going to end it if they get to the start-finish line right there. So whatever happens next, your winner is going to be whatever happens here in these next 2.66 miles.
Yeah, I mean, it's anybody's race right now. Obviously, Chris Buescher's in the right spot. Ryan Blaney has been good all day. I don't think he's got enough dancing partners to try to get back up to the front, but we'll see how this is going to shake out here in about another half a lap.
Yeah, Harvick's holding down on the bottom. Blaney is there, but Buescher get a push. We got cars sideways. That's all happening behind everybody, so we're going to go ahead and race this thing out to the end. And it is Blaney back up to the front. Look at Stenhouse, dude. Look at Stenhouse jumping on the bottom. This could be a crash fest coming to the line.
3 wide behind Blaney. Eric Jones getting a good run from Nemechek. Blaney goes up to block.
Oh, man, getting a push. They're going to be 3 wide. At the line, it is Stenhouse. Blaney. Oh, my goodness. Good night, nurse.
Wow.
Oh, man.
Crazy finish.
Jeez. And let me tell you something here. And I know that the question of the NASCAR drivers and so forth and all of that has come about. And obviously there's a situation going on right now, which we'll touch on here in just a little bit as well. I mean, it's like you have to talk about it. But you're watching Ryan Blaney right there. And we saw Ryan Blaney after Daytona. And this is what I'm thinking as I'm watching him block. We saw him, what happened with Newman and how that hurt him. I mean, you could tell how that scared him. Everything that happened at Daytona is he was actually the one that got into Newman. But these guys, I mean, it's ice water in the veins, man.
Yeah, laps led today for Ryan Newman unofficially 61 laps. So he dominated today there down at Talladega. So it looks like maybe you got all 3 Penske cars actually securing the win. Obviously, they got to go through the post-technical inspection and everything else. But kudos to NASCAR for trying to find the right window to get this race in today.
Man, that was one hell of a close finish right there. But and we talked on Saturday about Eric Jones. You know, Eric Jones not really he's kind of been off the map. He's been the Gibbs car that just has been you know, the isolated one, and right there it looked like he really had a good run coming to the line, and he gets turned, and the bad luck continues. Jeez, that guy can't buy a break either.
No, he can't, but it looks like Christopher Bell, the more that he messes up. I mean, Jones is still going to end up in a Toyota. It just depends on which Toyota he ends up on. It might be a ride swap between him and Christopher Bell.
That's kind of what I've been thinking, dude. That's kind of what I've been thinking, that's what we may see happening, you know, at that point. And there it is, Kerry Stapp. Kerry Stapp wins the post of the day. I'm watching the race. Your commentating was better than the guys on TV. You know, that Kerry Stapp has always been one of my favorite people.
That's right.
Hey,
That's
Kerry,
right.
Kerry, can you call Megan Engelhardt at Fox and let her know that? Maybe we can replace these two. It's good stuff. That was fun. That was a really, really good race right there, and you know, good for Blaney. Good for Blaney. He's a good dude, and you know, through all of this, you know, I know that he and Bubba Wallace are good buddies, and I mean they're best pals, and I'm sure he's going to dedicate this to him, and that's okay. And that's okay. And everybody calm down a little bit. This whole thing with yesterday, I mean, I don't know if it's a Jesse Smollett thing or anything like that. I mean, I doubt it. He can't get in there. But, you know, I don't know what happened we can only talk about what we see and what we've been told and what's reported to us. But let's just calm down. Let's just slow down a little bit.
But a good showing for Blaney. Love the old school stash on Ryan Blaney. You gotta just, he doesn't fit the Penske mold, but at the same time he does. But good deal for the captain after doing that crew chief swap. All three drivers picking up a win before even mid-season. So that's that just shows that the captain knows kind of what he's doing.
Yeah, and Penske, the class of the field today, and we talked about it again on Saturday. We talked about how the Fords have been the best. I forget what it was, 11 of the last 15 races. The Ford horsepower has been the one to beat, and they were obviously the class of the field today. And we move on. Time for the doubleheader. Let's go to Pocono.
I'm going to be interested to see how that's going to shake out. I think that it's Fox last race is the Pocono doubleheader, isn't it?
I believe so. Yep, I believe so. Is that right? Yeah. And then we go to no fans at Indianapolis.
I still can't believe there's not going to be any fans at Indy.
Yeah, that's going to be strange, man. That we talked about Bristol and the huge Bristol Motor Speedway, but Indianapolis going to be tough. So here's Bubba going out. Oh, that's right. I forgot there were 5,000 fans there. I totally forgot about that part.
Yeah, I know. What's exactly is he running on? I'm looking at it a little bit backwards through my TV. So
yeah, I'm gonna take a listen here. I think he's just going up. There's some supporters there. He's just gonna go over and do some high fives and all that stuff. And he had a good run today. I will tell you, there at one point it looked like he was doing extremely well. He actually led for a little bit. So good run for the 43. I never, despite everything that's going on, and I know there's different opinions from everybody about that situation, but I can tell you one thing that never bothers me is seeing the 43 up at the front of a NASCAR race.
Nope, never a problem with the 43 up and running. I have a feeling that this will all shake out good for the King. It was good to see the King there at the race earlier today. So maybe by chance the whole thing might shake out and might get a full funded ride there for Bubba and get the King back up front where he should be. Yeah,
I would totally, and despite the circumstances, because we hear the argument all the time, and we've got archives here where we talk to people, and talking about drivers that get their rides because people bring money to them or the driver brings money or whatever. If this situation does help the 43 team, whether you're still a fan of Bubba Wallace, you were a fan, you're not anymore, or you're still a fan of Bubba Wallace, whatever. I think that's a great point by Bobby right there. Is the 43 team gets better, and that's a good thing for NASCAR, whichever way you look at this.
Yeah, every time the winningest car, well, I guess technically not the winningest car number, one of the winningest organization gets a chance to win and run up front and do good. That's good for the sport. Obviously, we call Richard Petty the King for a reason. One of the greatest ever. Statistically and nationally known, one of the recognizable faces there in NASCAR. So
yeah, and while we talk about this situation only because the two situations correlate just in the fact that they were controversial along the same social guidelines. We talked about Kyle Larson on the Saturday show about the role that he was on, and he finally lost a race where he finished second, but then he wins again on Saturday. And we're continuing to watch Kyle Larson. I saw something today where he was on a podcast and he said he knows what he's doing for the next 4 weeks and he plans to be racing, World of Outlaws and racing dirt and everything. But we're watching Kyle Larson just on a tremendous run and proving that he is one of the baddest asses behind the wheel that we've seen in a long time.
Well, he's definitely putting his money where his mouth is, right? That's why they call him Young Money. Yeah. So he's gone back to his roots, been able to really make an exceptional statement about just because he misspoke, so to speak. He didn't lose any talent over that. Just an unfortunate circumstances in today's world, and so now it's definitely he's shown that I am the racer that I said I always was. So that's good.
Yeah, and it's something that we also mentioned on Saturday. It's not Kyle Larson. Admitted the fault, admitted the situation there, and owned up to that, and showed the remorse that we truly believe was remorse. I think everybody that saw that, feels that way. It was a mistake, but he has gone about it, and he's moving forward. I mean, it's not, he's not still sitting here apologizing. And what I like about it, even though we're we're in the back and forth and the two different sides of the Bubba situation and the Petty situation, what we're seeing there is Larson did what he did, admitted the mistake, and he's just moving forward. And he put himself in a position to where I think with that apology, he's not having to continue to deal with that. He's concentrating on his family and his career.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, said what he needed to say and just moved on. Some people still haven't moved on, but definitely you can tell that Kyle Larson has definitely moved on, trying to get back to the next step in his career.
And with that being said, I mean, it goes without saying. It seems like the writing is on the wall. The platter is kind of set in front of him that it's going to be that jump to Stewart-Haas. Bobby, do you think that this dude jumps in, whether it's the 14 or the 41, whatever may happen there, if that is the case? You think this dude jumps in and just sets the tour on fire and is just winning titles?
I think he's got the opportunity to do that. You're not going to see the instantaneously successfulness like you saw. I think that the Furniture Row aspect, when they finally got the right combination between driver and crew chief and set the world on fire, that's what everybody expects when a new driver goes to a new place. Mm-hmm. Don't expect to see that right away with Kyle Larson. Not saying that the Stewart-Haas equipment is not elite, but it is not what it once was. When you have don't have the drivers, a couple of years ago, and all the drivers are winning at the exact same time. All four teams winning, running well at Stewart-Haas. That's when they think they were at their height. Don't think they're quite at that level right now, but they're getting back to that point. Obviously, when you've got Harvick is the lead dog over there. Clint Bowyer has had shown speed, but he has not had any consistency lately. And then Eric Almirola's just had a string of bad luck. More so, he's always somewhat been running up competitively. I think that team is missing out because they did the crew chief swap between Clint Bowyer and Eric Almirola, and I think those two teams, the lack of practice has found a way to hurt them in the fact that they don't have enough practice to try to get the drivers lingo with the crew chief lingo. And mm-hmm. Of course, you got the rookie and Cole Custer. So Stewart-Haas definitely not what it once was, but lots of extenuating circumstances around him.
Yeah. Yep, I think that I do think it'll come together, and we see this in waves. I mean, it's waves in this sport, so we'll see. Quickly, Texana Raceway Park, also racing on Saturday. Your Mod Lights, Taylor Hunter, and the E-Mods, James Jennings, the Modifieds, Cody Leonard, Street Stocks, Jarrett Barber. There you go. There's that good Russ Luck. Jenny Barber on here last week. Jarrett wins in the streets on Saturday. Dalton Faulkner in the factory stocks, man. That is one badass factory stock driver right there. That dude, if he's in a race, he's probably going to win. He's good.
He's definitely got a string of finishes that anybody on a bad year would love to even remotely have. So he's won a few more races than we've lost over the last couple of seasons. So that's always, I guess it's always good when they know who they're going to have to beat when they have to go through somebody.
Mm-hmm. Sport Mods, Chris Rye wins over there at Texana. Also over at Heart of Texas in the factory stocks, Shannon Dulock in the streets, Brandon Hood, the iStocks, the Acrobat, Jason Batt wins again. That's another guy. If he's in a race, odds are good that he's probably going to win. The Lone Star Dwarf Car Series, Chance Neal. Damon Hammond wins the Sport Mods, and Jeffrey Abbey wins in the Modifieds. That is revvedupsportshow@gmail.com. Send us over your results, and we will sure as hell talk about them here because that's what we want to talk about. Thank you, Joyce. 100 wins in Waco. Man, that's a lot of wins for Jason Batt.
That's all in a short period of time.
Yeah. And he's really, really good. He is really, really good. So congratulations to all those folks on their great wins. Cody Coughlin wins at Anderson Speedway in the ARCA CRA Super Series as well. And this is a big weekend coming up if you're an asphalt fan because, Bobby, this is the one that, man, I still wish I could get there. I can't. But you got the big doubleheader coming up at Five Flags. That right there, that's a race extravaganza right there.
I think a lot of people are really looking forward to it. It was the talk of Houston. I'm like you, really wish I could actually make it to that race, but I can't. Extenuating circumstances outside of my control on that. But yeah, definitely one of the highlights of the year. I think this is going to be. I think that Tim Bryant and the gang over at Five Flags there in Pensacola and the Southern Super Series. I have a feeling that this doubleheader format will happen at least again in 2021, as much as the hype of it as has surrounded this first one.
And we watched them last year where they're doing different things. Obviously, you have to do them now because you've got everything that we've been going through here the last 3.5, 4 months, whatever it's been. But we saw last year we had Bubba Pollard on here and talked to him after when they ran heat races and all of that. And we're starting to see. I mean, I can tell you, I think at Houston at some point, we'll see where heat races may come back into play once again. But this is, I think, the positive of this is, and we're seeing it on the dirt side as well. The positive that we're seeing of this is we're seeing folks think outside the box. Whether it be promoters and track operators and sanctioning bodies, we're thinking outside of the box and maybe doing things a little bit differently, because this sport, our sport, is the one that tends to get, well, we've always done it this way. And I think that this has caused us to do things just a little bit different.
Well, I think as you said, obviously a lot of this has been forced upon us to do it certain ways. But I think you're going to notice certain ways. You're going to see things change. I don't think we've seen the end of the weekends, the Wednesday midweek races as NASCAR goes. I'm sure there's going to have a couple of more of those races. I anticipate maybe. I think we'll see one or two shockers out of it. Like, who knows, when they release the schedule, we might get a midweek race at Dover, might get a midweek race at New Hampshire, some of those places like that. So that logistics will be interesting to see that on how those shake out when you go from New Hampshire all the way down back to Charlotte for a midweek race. If that's the case, it may happen.
Yeah, for sure. Quickly before Mark Fryer, he's coming up at 7:10. Let's jump over to Two Wheels, talking about all the winners around here and so forth. But Lord knows we're huge Supercross fans. I know we got a lot of Supercross folks that catch this on podcast and sometimes live, but it's mostly on the podcast. But we the Monster Energy Supercross, they crown all of their champions yesterday. Eli Tomac finally does it. It's been... I mean, that guy, he's found ways to not win that Monster Energy Supercross title. He does it. He wins it. He's got the number 1 plate. Good job by him.
Yeah, finally. Well, he was able to stay upright all season, which I think has probably been the biggest key to him not winning the championships after years of winning the most races and not winning the championship. But this year he's able to keep it upright for a majority of the season. And outlasted everybody else. Outlasted everybody. Good job to Zach Osborne picking up his first 450 win.
Yeah.
There yesterday afternoon. But gotta love the fight in Cooper Webb.
Man, that dude. I mean, he proved the point that he was that he was a true champion, because he did. I mean, he went after it. And the thing with Tomac, I think one thing that helped Tomac that in my opinion, again with the Supercross with the Supercross series, most of those are indoors. Eli Tomac has proven himself, many times over as a great outdoor rider, and winning those outdoor titles in the summer. And he's got 2 or 3, whatever it is, of those where he's got the number 1 plate in those. But the fact that this series transitioned over to Rice-Eccles Stadium there in Salt Lake City at an outdoor venue, I think that may have played in nicely for him. It didn't hurt that he had a nice pad. I'm not saying that he's not better, indoors, but I think that he just seems to be in his groove outdoors, and he wasn't the best rider at Salt Lake City. I mean that was Cooper Webb, but the cushion was there, and like you said, he managed to keep himself up, and it doesn't matter. He's a champ. That's all she wrote.
That's right. There's no asterisks on any of those. It said so-and-so was out, and so-and-so was out, and so-and-so didn't make it. At the end of the day, they're all Monster Energy Supercross FIM World Champions. And so there's no asterisk on that when it says you win the title.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's exactly right. Something else, Bobby, that I had written down for Saturday, and we never got to it, and I just saw it. And speaking of Five Flags, so that there is actually the Rowdy Energy, Twin 100s. There is actually a way where if a driver was in the tie the Rattler back in, somebody can win $35,000, $35K. That's pretty damn good for super late model racing this weekend.
Pretty good for super late model racing, although you're not going to see. I very seriously doubt you're going to see Ty Majeski try to pull off the back-to-back wins with the Rattler in these twin Rowdy 100s. Because he's going to be racing that truck.
Oh, you're right.
There at Pocono.
You're right. You're exactly right. These damn schedules. I'll tell you. The other thing we talked about on Saturday, didn't get to talk with this bunch. Junior, Mike Stefanik, Red Farmer. Awesome. Red Farmer into the Hall of Fame. How cool is that?
Yeah, it's pretty cool. As we talked about a little bit on the Saturday show, we had a chance to speak with him and Jody Ridley there at the Snowball Derby a couple of years ago. Still smart as a tack.
Man.
Still looking. Every corner was looking at some of those John Heil mods, wondering how they were able to turn, how they did this, and what they look like. So Red Farmer, even at his age, what is he? 87 years old, I think, is what he is.
Yeah, yeah.
Still
Something like that,
kicking it.
yeah.
They're at the Talladega short track, right across the street from the big track.
Man, that is unbelievable to see. I mean, these guys, like we said, the interview with him. I mean, it's like he's good. I mean, he is ready to go. I mean, it's just it's unbelievable to see that these guys, the longevity in it. And I tell you, the cool thing about it is because now the drivers are so young, and we do see guys that, and it's just how the sport has changed so much. I mean, you remember Harry Gant? I mean, when Harry Gant finally got to Cup, I mean, the dude was in his mid 40s, and it's such a different environment now. It's such a different world, but really good to see guys like Red Farmer. I mean that's the true badasses right there, and to see him get to drive these cars now, that's where you sit back and think, well, what about if Cale Yarborough was, still able to race and all this? That's where you really start to compress that question. It's like, man, because Red Farmer can still do it and does it really, really good.
Mm-hmm. Lots of young kids still getting their ass whooped by Red Farmer, but that's nothing to be ashamed about because he's been doing it for a long time, for multiple generations. Some of these guys, he kicked their granddaddy's ass, he kicked their dad's ass, and now, lo and behold, he's coming out and kicking their ass too. So.
Yep, absolutely. That's what it's all about right there, and that is why we love it. And speaking about legendary motorsports figures, legendary short track drivers. Of course, we talked about Freddie Fryer. I will truly say, Bobby, I think you'll agree with me that the day that Freddie Fryer came on this show is the day that the landscape of this program changed 150%. That was a huge day. We're hitting the Revved Up Sports Show hotline, and we're going to talk to Mark Fryer. Mark, how are you, man?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Oh, man, we are absolutely well, man. How's everything up y'all's way? Everybody good?
Yeah, it's been pretty good. We started racing there about a month ago, and we've run a few races here, so we're kind of getting back to normal.
Nice. Good deal.
So, Mark, talk about getting back to normal. What's a normal race weekend for you guys like nowadays? Is it one of those where everybody thinks it's just as simple? You just show up on Saturday, mid-Saturday afternoon, unload the car, and you're just fast right out of the box. We try to tell people all the time, these races are won and lost in the shop. If you got to sit there and change everything by the time you get to the racetrack, you're already behind the 8-ball.
Yeah, that's for sure. Most of the races that we run, the car store series, they have a practice day on Friday, so we show up Friday and we get a couple hours of practice, and then a couple of practices Saturday morning before qualifying, and then race Saturday night. So you have to be pretty close when you show up. So it's definitely a lot of competition, and these days it's definitely a lot harder. Everybody's good when you show up, so you have to work at it. Some days you're real close, and some days you're off a little bit, and you got to keep working until you figure out what's going on. So we've had 2 good races this year, and hopefully this weekend we're going to be back at it again. So.
No, that's an awesome thing. So with the Cars Tour, again, we love the Cars Tour. I mean, what a great, I mean, it's the modern day All Pro. I say it all the time. Mark, you guys, got to ask you, man, that Ace Speedway thing, what the hell was that like being there for all of that?
From our standpoint, there wasn't much, we didn't hear much or know much about it. I mean, we knew what was going on, but man, it was a normal race weekend for us. And, you see all the normal people in the pits. We had to wear a mask sometimes, and so other than that, it was just basically a normal race weekend for us. Now they'd had a couple of local races before ours, and so there was some talk before we even showed up, but all in all, it was a good weekend. And this year, we switched over to the late model stocks and from the super late models last year, and so it's been a little bit of game for us being in a late model stock car. But we're adapting quick, and we got a new race car, and they've got us real close on all setups and stuff.
So, Mark, for those that are listening in that don't know the difference between the super late models and a late model stock, what's the Cliff Notes versions of the difference between those two cars? Because it's kind of like the difference between not quite the difference between a pro late model and a super late model, right?
Well, the pro late model and super late model is basically the same car, with the pro late model having a crate engine. Our car is a perimeter car. Our car is close to an Xfinity car, we should say. It has a perimeter chassis, truck arms. A lot of the late model stock is mandated from NASCAR. A lot of people followed the NASCAR rules on that, like the car store did, because that's what most of the rules around here are, the NASCAR late model stocks. Mm-hmm. So it's quite a bit heavier. The super late models are 2750, and the late model stocks weigh 3100. And we have about 500 horsepower, and the super has about 600. And then, like I said, we're a perimeter car. We're kind of closer to an Xfinity car as far as the chassis and some of the components.
Yeah, that makes sense. So the Cars Tour, your thoughts on that? Like I said, I mean, we love it. I want it in Houston, for crying out loud. But just a well-run organization. I mean, it seems like your promoter is right on top of things and bring a good crowd, good car count. I mean, everything just really seems to be, that is the series that you want to be running in, it seems like.
Yeah, in this area here, it's definitely the best thing going. I mean, they're on their game every week. The schedule's the same, and the tech's the same. I mean, you know what to expect, and they run a great show. And Jack, here comes around, thanks everybody for being there. And the late model stock racing, you know, that we're doing, the Car Tour, is, man, it's second to none. I mean, it's tough, and so they definitely run a good show.
All right, well, Mark, talk about the season so far. How many races have you guys got to run in, and what's been the results for you and the team?
We ran in 2 races. Jared finished 3rd at Ace, and then our last race was at Hickory, and we finished 4th there and had a real good car to end. And then our next Cars Tour race is July 11th at Carteret County. And this weekend there's South Boston's having a late model stock, their big late model stock race that we're going to go run it. They're expecting like 30 cars there. So
wow.
It'll be this area of North Carolina here is late model stock country. It's kind of North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia is late model stock country, and there's a lot more late model stock races than there are super races, and that's kind of why we went with the late model stock, just for so we could race a little more and race some local stuff. The super is basically around here is just a touring series, unless you go to Pensacola or Montgomery or somewhere, which is a pretty good drive for us, or up north.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So, Mark, let's talk about the driver. Let's talk about Jared. We got to see him here a couple of times at the old CTS, doing a really good job there for George Hagee. Parked it in Victory Lane. Your thoughts on that young dude? We've talked to him here. A lot of admiration for him. He's a damn good wheel man. Keeping up that last name tradition.
Yeah, he enjoys racing, and you know, I've kind of brought him up working on him. So he does a lot of his own setup stuff, and springs, all the springs and bump stops, all that stuff he does. And so, you know, I think it's, as a driver, I think you're definitely way better if you understand how your car works. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of where he's at. He kind of understands how the car works. And sometimes he'll come in and like, take the left front shock off. I know what's wrong with it. And so just, he does a good job. He does a good job at it. I think they always joke with me that it skipped a generation. So so anyway, what's cool? I was going to tell you guys that my dad came up here and ran Caraway Speedway in 1982. First time he ever been there and won the race. And some like 35 or 36 years later, Jared ran his first race at Caraway and won the race.
Damn.
So it's pretty cool to me to see Jared get to run some of the tracks that my dad ran. He got to run Corpus, San Antonio, Pensacola, Nashville, all them tracks my dad ran back in the day, and that's pretty cool to me.
That's awesome.
So, Mark, here's a question for you. Did you have more fun racing with your dad, or you have more fun racing with Jared?
It's hard to say. I had less stress racing with my dad because I didn't have to stress and worry about everything like I do with Jared. I do most of the stuff on his cars and keep up most of the cars that he's drove and stuff. So I put a lot of stress on myself, but it's fun with both. I mean, I enjoy seeing Jared win. I enjoyed seeing my dad win. But it's hard to say which one's better. They're both good.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's like when I messaged you, Mark. I mean, I've been wanting to talk to you for several weeks, but again, it's like, okay, let's give this some time. Let's talk about the Beaumont Flyer. I mean, that's a guy like if you're like myself growing up down here. I mean, it was. The Friday night or the Saturday, hopefully Freddie Fryer shows up to Austin or San Antonio or Corpus. Just talk about that guy. I mean, he did so much. He was so good. And what I thought was always impressive, and I'm finding out even now, is he did so much with so little. He just beat people because he was good.
Yeah, and he worked on his race cars hard, and I swear I got a lot of that. He spent a lot of time. He's real meticulous on his race cars. His race cars always looked nice as far as, when you raise the hood. I mean, all the wiring and plumbing, everything was always run nice and neat. And he worked hard on his race cars, and he worked hard on the setup and stuff. I know Alvin Shelton, who used to help my dad back in the day and also has helped Jared some. He told me they'd dismount 10 tires a night trying to get the right stagger and roll out and all that stuff. And,
wow.
And so they worked, and he worked hard at it, and he raced a lot, and he raced all over. So anywhere he went, he was seen to be, good. And a lot of that was before my time in the early 60s and in the early 70s. I didn't go a lot with him because I was young, but in the late 70s, early 80s, I spent a lot of time racing with him, and I got a lot of good memories.
I bet.
So Mark, when Freddie was on with us, he talked about who his biggest rivals was the Allison gang. Do you remember any part of that? Was that still before your time, or do you remember him getting into it with Bobby and Donnie?
Most of them was before my time, but I do remember a little bit of them racing, and I don't remember them. He says rival. I think it's just his toughest competition because them guys were tough. They did the same thing. They worked hard. They had good cars, and they all put their heads together. And but I remember Bobby driving my dad's car at Myers Speedway there in Houston.
Jeez.
And and I remember my dad qualifying Bobby's car at Texas World for, I'm not sure if it was a NASCAR race or a USAC race, but it was it was on the big track. And I remember my dad qualifying because Bobby couldn't be there. So I don't know that they were rivals being at each other's throat. They were just hard racers. And both of them were hard racers, including Donnie. And Donnie had a lot of good things to say about my dad after he passed. I think they were just hard. They're all hard racers back then, but they all respected each other.
And that's kind of moving back into this, and we'll definitely get back to Freddie, but because that's what I wanted to ask you. It does seem like, because you've been at this for a long time, isn't that something that it seems like nowadays with racing, that the whole respect thing, it's it kind of goes under by the wayside sometimes, doesn't it? And it causes bad blood, and you get stuff tore up, and it's like, man, if you could get one thing back from the old days, it's like a little bit of that good respect and just good hard competition.
Yeah, that would be great. Back then, I mean, my dad was 4 or 5 nights a week. When I started helping him, we'd run 3 at Austin, San Antonio, and Baton Rouge on Sunday.
Wow.
And they had to respect each other because they all raced that same car the next night and definitely the next weekend, so they didn't tear up near as much too. They all had a lot more respect, it seemed like.
Yeah.
And then now, we race once a week or once every 2 weeks, so we have a little time to fix it if something happens. But back then they raced the same car. I think Dick Trickle raced 6 nights a week, so
Jeez,
they couldn't tear their cars up like that. They had a lot of respect for each other, and they used their head, seemed like a lot more. And equipment and all is different today too.
Sure.
So it's
different time.
Yeah, different times for sure.
So, Mark, is part of that because of this next generation of kids? You mentioned that Jared works on his own stuff and stuff like that. Do you think that disconnect is where these kids bring in these high-dollar crew chiefs and stuff like that to just kind of, I hate to say baby them, but where they kind of just, if something gets tore up, it'll get fixed, and they don't even have to go to the shop to do it anymore?
Yeah, I think that a lot of them don't really understand how much work actually goes in a race car.
Mm-hmm.
When they tear it up or tear part of the body up, I mean, there's a lot of work that goes into that. And I'm not sure a lot of them are really not involved in racing other than just driving, so they don't see the work it takes to build a new car or work it takes to repair it after you crash. And that's one thing that I brought Jared up. I mean, we wasn't fortunate to have big money racing, so he knew if he wanted to race the next week, then he couldn't tear the car up.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've seen him drive a lot of times that I thought, he could have took more chances, but on the other side, he knows he wants to race the next week. So, and he knows what goes into, putting the car together and fixing it. And like I said, a lot of these kids, I don't think they know what goes into it because they just show up at the racetrack with their helmet. But but the people behind the scenes, they're putting a ton of work and ton of hours in race cars to get them prepared and all that.
Yeah. I definitely think that the hands-on approach is good for these young guys. I mean, it makes them better. I mean, you learn your car, and I mean, it does. It makes you better when you understand what the hell's going on, not just pop in and go. Have to ask you about this, and again, had a little bird whispering in our ear. You'll probably realize who it is as soon as I start asking you about this. This is Freddie. So there was a race at San Antonio, a while back, several years ago, and Terry Labonte's involved with this, and he's kind of gaining a little bit there on Freddie in the Nova, and then caution flag comes out, and do you remember what happened from there?
Oh yes, yeah. Actually, Terry Labonte told me that story.
That's awesome.
Yeah, Terry was racing my dad that night, running second, and he said he could see my dad getting loose, and the caution come out, and he said, "I got him now. His car's getting loose.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be on his bumper. I got him." He said he's putting around under caution. He looks up, and my dad's leaning over the seat with a ratchet, putting wedge in the car. Got the seatbelts loose, putting wedge in the car. And Terry said, I was so mad, I started running the back of him. And he said, they dropped the green flag, and he was gone. And Terry said, I didn't have a chance.
Oh, my goodness.
And, well, back then, they didn't have big headrests or leg braces or, all the safety stuff that they have today. So, I could just see him doing that. But, yeah, there's a lot of stories like that people have told me over the last month or so after my dad. Some of them I heard before. Some of them I just heard since he passed. And But yeah, that's one of the funniest stories I've heard.
Oh my God, that was hilarious. When got that from Tom Taylor, that was just so funny.
Yeah.
That was so funny. Sorry, Bobby, go ahead.
Oh, I mean, how can I follow up that? Where Freddie's unstrapping and trying to put in wedge in the car, but talk about listening to the stories of your dad. Obviously, he was one of the most special people we know in racing, and you mentioned the guys coming with the stories. I mean, how gratifying was that to know that so many people have so many memories about your dad?
Oh yeah, it was unbelievable. The phone calls, the messages, the Facebook messages, just a lot of people posting stories, people telling me stories. A friend of mine, Robbie, he told me he was my dad was crew chiefing for Joe Ruttman and at Roush, I believe it was, and they were in Portland, Oregon, and they had a test. Oh, like the day before the race, they had a test day, I guess. So they were there at the test, and this Robbie guy was working for Hendricks, and he was parked next to him, and he said, my dad told him to get the backup truck out. And he said, why? That Joe don't like the backup truck. And he said, just get it out. So they got it out, and they were practicing there. And then my dad jumped in the backup truck and went out there and made about I don't know how many laps, made a few laps and came in and said, it's not bad at all. And Robbie said the times he ran would have been quick enough for the pole that night. and he was just a crew chief,
Oh my goodness.
So there's stories like that. And like I said, there's been several, and I don't know if I can remember them all, but it's good to hear stories like that. And I heard a lot from the Texas people that my dad, would give them trophies to the fence there at San Antonio when he won. And I remember kids coming up to my dad when I was there at San Antonio and telling him, he's like, "Hey, I want your trophy next Saturday night when you win it." And he'd laugh and say, well, if I win, I'll give it to you. Yeah. He always gives his trophies to the kids.
Oh my goodness, that is so awesome. I mean, it was just like I said, it was so neat getting to talk to him that evening that he was with us. I mean, just such great stories. So Mark, you said it skipped a generation. Did you try it? Did you get behind the wheel and give this shit a go?
I did a little bit. I lived in Florida for a little while, and I ran a hobby car down there some, and I won a few races, but I didn't really have the money to race myself. But I enjoy working on them. I'd say right now more than I would driving.
Yeah, I'm sure.
But
yeah,
my dad raced for a living, so everything that he had. Yeah. He made a living off of that, so he couldn't put me in his backup car or one of the other cars because he could take a chance on wrecking it because he may have to have it for a spare or something. Mm-hmm. And he different people drove his cars. I remember Dick Trickle drove his car there at Myers Speedway in Houston. I mentioned Bobby Allison drove it. Back in the early 70s, maybe late 60s, Marty Robbins drove it several times in Nashville.
That's right.
And there was different people that drove my dad's car from time to time. They'd pay the people to show up. They'd probably pay my dad, I'm sure, to let them drive it. My dad was driving somebody else's car, or maybe at the time his father-in-law's car. Mm-hmm. And
Yeah. No, absolutely. Absolutely.
Gotta have to pay the bills first.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, because he did. He raced for a living. That's for sure.
Yeah.
All right, so luckily for us, on Facebook has questions that we don't know about, and one of them this is from Joe Ed Bowers. It says, "Talk about the bounty on Larry Child at Myers Speedway that your dad won."
Yeah, he started going down there before I was really going with him. He went down there in I think it was the early 70s, maybe 74, and they paid him to come down there because Larry Child had won all the races or majority of the races. And so they paid my dad to come down there. And he went down there and beat him. I don't know if it was the first week or second week, or I don't know but he ended up beating him. And then then my dad started coming down there and racing quite a bit at Myers. And then, like I said, the different people drove his car there. They also did. He also had a bounty on Larry Shaw in, I think it's Springfield.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Or maybe Odessa. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what track it is. Again, that was kind of before I started helping him. I was pretty young then, and Larry was winning all the races. And then, you know, they had paid my dad to come up there, and he beat Larry at his home track. You know, and so that happened several times in different places. You know, he kind of, like I said, he raced for a living. If somebody offered him a deal to come race somewhere to beat the hot shoe at the local track, and he went, you know.
Yeah.
And most of the time, you know, he won the race. So
yeah. I got to tell you, Mark. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I just hate I missed a lot of that.
Mm.
You know, like I said, I was younger, but
yeah,
hate I missed a lot of that. But I did get to see a lot too.
Yeah. I got to tell you, one of the funniest things that he said that night, because he was talking about Marty Robbins, and I think that he said Marty was driving. Somebody had paid your dad, and Marty was going to drive your dad's car, and something happened. And Freddie said, "Hey, I got a pocket full of money. You know, let me help you, Marty," or whatever the case was. And Marty's like, "That's your money." It's just great stories that he talked about. So, what were I mean the values that Freddie taught you? I mean, whether it be life or racing. Now that unfortunately he is not with us, the things that he instilled in you, obviously hard work because you guys are working your tails off. The things that he put in you to get you out into your life.
Yeah, definitely racing. You know, I mean, he taught me everything as far as racing. And I made my living most of my career in racing, from being to the top series all the way to short tracks and stuff. Not driving, but working on them.
Yeah.
And but he taught me all that, and taught me, you know, to be, you know, real particular about my cars when I'm putting them together and make them nice and you know, mainly racing. That's, you know, because that's all we did. I mean, when I worked with him, we'd get up in the morning, go to the race shop, and, you know, we'd take a break at dinner time, and we were back at the shop till 11 o'clock at night and start all over again till we went to the racetrack.
Wow.
So, and that's, you know, that's what it takes to be a good racer. I mean, just hours in a race car.
Mm-hmm. Yep, no doubt.
All right, Mark. So let's go back and talk about Jared again. Jared, he's done quite a little bit in a short period of time. What's the one thing that jumps out from your experience, either racing with your dad or just being around racing? What's the one thing, or maybe there might be more than one, that has that it factor for Jared? What's it makes him so special with the stuff he's able to do with the limited resources that you guys have?
He's got a good feel for a car. My dad had that, and Jared has it too. And matter of fact, Jared's even been and jumped in other people's cars. He was helping one kid one day, and the kid had spun out a couple times, and the crew chief said, "Hey, can you get in that seat? How about getting in there?" And he said, "Yeah, I can get in there and make a few laps." He jumped in there, and he went out there and come right in and said, "Hey, has this thing got a brake valve on it?" And he said, "Yeah." And he said, "Well, you need to take that off because his rear brakes are the problem." And I mean, he could feel that. And then he never got back in it. And the kid got back in it, went out there, and the car was way better. But my dad was the same way. My dad was a crew chief for Jimmy Hensley at the Petty's truck team.
Yeah.
And they were struggling. They went to a track over here I don't live 15 minutes from that we talked about, Caraway.
Mm-hmm.
They went there to test, and my dad jumped in the truck to check it out, and he wrecked it, backed it in the fence. And he told them guys, said, "Look, I got bad news. We got to work all night because this thing's got to leave in the morning for IRP, which is when they ran the old IRP in Indy." And he said, "But on the positive side, I found the problem. The rear brakes with this truck is a major problem, and that's why I wrecked it." So they worked all night and they fixed the brakes and went to IRP. And I think Jimmy led every lap of the race except for the last 3 on a restart. They beat him on a restart, and I think he finished second.
Wow.
So, and Jared, I think Jared's got that feel that my dad had when it comes to the car. You know, sometimes Jared will come in and say, just take front shock off. I know what the problem is. Like I was telling you before, that, you know, he has that feel for a car. And usually if he tells you your car is good, then, you know, we're going to have a pretty good night.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, no, that's great, and I do see with Jared. I mean, and I've just seen him a couple of times. He just very, very calm, and that's really important as well. I mean, you get guys that kind of fly off the handle, but Jared is just, I mean, cool under pressure. It seems like.
And a lot of people tell me that he reminds me of my dad how he races. You know, he just sits back and rides, and he might be running 10th, but in the last 20 laps or 10 laps, he'll be in position, you know, to be in the top 5. Yeah. And that's kind of how my dad was. He didn't abuse his equipment. He ran just hard enough to, you know, to lead or keep close to the lead there. And then when it was time to go, you know, he had something left. Mm-hmm. And he didn't run off. I don't think any race he ever won, he ran off and lapped the field or won by a straightaway, because that wasn't him.
Right.
He's just going to beat you is what he's going to do. You know, he's not going to beat you by a straightaway. He might beat you by a bumper, but you know.
Yeah.
You just got to take care of your equipment.
Yeah, that's it. That's exactly right.
So what's the big picture for Jared? Is it just racing to race what he can, or does he have any aspirations to move to maybe the truck series, maybe a touring series around them neck of the woods? I mean, what's his end goal? I mean, obviously he's got the talent to move up that ladder, but we know it takes more than talent in today's racing world.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's goal is to, you know, run the top 3 series, but as most people know, it's all about, you know, the money now. And I mean, there's kids that he raced with for years that are running. You know, Ryan Blaney's one of them. He raced with Ryan Blaney that's running Cup. A lot of kids running ARCA, Xfinity, and trucks. But you know, we just been doing the short track stuff, which even the short track stuff's expensive. I mean, we get a lot of help. It went for a lot of people that helped Jared along the way that we wouldn't even do that. So thankful to do what we can do. And, you know, I think right now he just wants to race. He'd race anything. So, and be thankful for it. We don't have the money to run trucks or any of that stuff. So, and it's just hard to get people to help you at that level because it's so much money. You know, we got a lot of people that helps us right now. But that next level is, you know, the money changes a lot.
Yes. Yeah. This sport unfortunately revolves around that almighty dollar. Mark.
Yeah, and it's not.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
It's not about talent much no more. I mean, you know, nobody's picking nobody up because they're winning races. I mean, there's a lot of good late model stock drivers and champions that's won a lot of races that are still racing late model stock or super late models because, you know, they don't have the money to go run trucks. Mm-hmm. But they've won championships and a bunch of races.
Yeah.
So, you know, just the way it is today anyway.
Yeah, and I really do think, because we've talked to Bubba Pollard on this program several times, and I think it's guys like your dad and Bubba Pollard, and there are many of them that they excelled in short track racing and did really, really well, and that's unfortunate because there really are. I mean, Saturday nights around the country, there are probably guys that are better than what we just watched at Talladega, but the brakes just aren't there.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of people that we've raced with over the years that got a lot of talent, that have a lot of talent, and you know, well, some of them don't even race no more.
Yeah.
And you know, that'll never get a shot. And Bubba's one of them, you know, and it's unfortunately it's not about the talent.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, Mark, how much other racing do you get to watch? You ever watch any of the Cup Series races? You ever watch some of the races on Speed 51, like some of the bigger super late model races? I mean, what do you do when you're not working on Jared's cars? You just go inside, kick the feet up, or you stay up to date with a lot of the other different racing
Working
series?
on the car.
Yeah, I watch a lot of I watch a lot of Speed 51 races. A lot of races are on MAV TV. Yeah, I watch if there's something on TV and it has something to do with racing, I'm usually watching it. So yeah, I watch about all of it when I can. Mostly on Sundays. I try not to work on Sundays, so that's when I watch Cup races, or I'll go back and watch Speed 51 or the replays on Speed 51 or something. So yeah, that's there's a bunch of stuff out there, a bunch of the dirt races and all that.
Oh yeah. Lastly, Mark, I mean, if there's one memory with your dad, whether it be that all-pro run, '83 championship, I don't know if you were a part of that, based on age and so forth, or him, the truck stuff that was going on, or hell, whether it be coming to TWS for Texas Racer Champions. Your favorite memory, if you could nail down one with your dad and with Jared, and I know Jared still has many more to go, but your thoughts on those?
Oh man, I got so many.
I bet.
Yeah, I was part of the '83 championship. I was part of that, so that's a huge memory, and several races. I know, like Jackson, Mississippi was always a good track for him, so I enjoyed going there because I knew, that was we were gonna run good there every time we went there.
Yeah.
And but I guess probably the best one I'm thinking is probably the 81 Snowball Derby.
Oh. Yeah.
I was there for the 81 Snowball Derby, and that was one of the coolest races that we ran. And man, as far as Jared winning the 2018 Cars Tour Championship was pretty special.
Mm-hmm.
And then every race that he's won, winning that Caraway race, the first race he run in, and he's won 2 or 3 at Caraway since then. He's won a couple of super late model races there. So they're all pretty special, nowadays. They're hard to come by.
Yeah.
But the Snowball with my dad's definitely, I wasn't at the 79 Snowball, but I was there at 81, and yeah, I remember that. That was definitely special.
Yeah, I bet it was. Man, what a legend, and so cool to still see that Fryer name doing really well in late model racing, and hopefully that's going to continue, and I think it will, because just such a great young talent right there, and as with yourself and Clint, and God rest his soul, Freddie, just good people, and that's just so important. So thank you guys. I mean, that's what we love about this sport, and you guys personify it.
Yeah, thank you for having me on. And when my dad was on there, I actually learned a lot of stuff just listening to him.
Nice.
Some of the stories I hadn't heard. So that was pretty interesting. But yeah, thanks for having me on. You have to have Jared on there one day.
Yeah, we talked to him way back. It's been a long time. It was quick. It was a real quick one, but we'll definitely get him back in line, and would love to talk to him again. Mark, thanks for the time, man. Thanks for sharing your dad, and thanks for sharing Jared with us now. It's good stuff.
Yeah, thank you.
You bet.
Great show. Thanks,
man. Take care.
All right. Bye.
All right. Bye-bye. There he is, Mark Fryer, that famous Fryer last name. And, I was thinking as Mark was talking, remember the conversation with Freddie, just cool. Same thing we're talking about with Jared. Just sounds like a normal, good dude.
Yeah, just low key, but yet realizing that you're good, but yet you're not cocky and you're not arrogant. That's really, really hard to come by nowadays. I mean, Freddie knew he was good. Like, you knew you were battling for second when he showed up at a racetrack, but the stuff that I've heard, obviously I didn't get a chance to watch him race. He was long retired by the time I started following it in the mid to late 80s, but it always seemed like he was just a cool customer. And when he came in, he was confident that he was going to win, but yet he didn't come off overly cocky. But maybe, maybe that's just I'm only hearing the good stories. But a lot of that, all I've heard is good stories about Freddie Fryer.
Yeah, and it's I just love those stories where they talk about, like with Child and there with Larry Phillips, where they used to hire him to come in to get in there and get after this. We talk about guys now, Kyle Busch and all these guys that are just so unbeatable. They're hard to beat and so forth. But when the promoters, when you had the local track promoters that raced every week, and they would pay these guys big, like Freddie said, pocket full of money, hand him a pocket full of money to come on in and beat the track favorite, and he never did it in an asshole type of fashion. And that's what Mark was talking about. And that's golly, man, I love hearing those old stories. That's some of the stuff that I wish we could get back again.
Well, hopefully we can get back to I would just like to see a day where there's just more respect on the racetrack. It's not so much I'm just going to, this is not a video game. This is not iRacing where you just get a chance to tear it up and hit the reset button by leaving it in the shop. So I think there are a few and far between racers nowadays that race in the upper divisions that actually still will work on their race cars. They're kind of becoming few and far between now, but definitely good to see some of those guys, some of those kids when we hear they actually get to work on their own stuff.
Well, and I think a lot of that, just like Mark was talking about there, is like with Jared. I mean, Jared has to work on the stuff, and that's where that respect factor is there, where you have to race the next time around or whatever it is, and you don't want to put that pressure on your guys. And it's like we were talking about with Kaez the other night, and I mean, I know they're team cars. I mean, I know that those two cars were team cars, but you walk away with a second and third finish rather than having one or two cars tore up, and that's good to see with the young guys. I mean, that's really good to see with the young guys.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we actually got to see wasn't too. I mean, there was some stuff that got tore up. A couple of eco stocks got really tore up, but for the most part, there wasn't that much carnage the whole night with some of the with your top couple of classes. So maybe that's a sign of good things to come for H2P here in 2020.
Yeah, and I think that those classes will continue to grow, and I'm gonna kind of zero in once again on the super stock guys, and it was a good super stock race. The Gaithers, hell of a run right there at the end as Brandon wins, but a good run by the 92 car there to get out there. Really, really good, clean, fast race, and there's still the whole question. I got the question throughout the night. I've actually already talked to Gino with the differentiation between the Outlaws and the Supers. I mean, that's something that, it is what it is.
You're not trust me, you're not the only one that got it. I got people stopping asking me the same thing.
Yeah.
And once they get on the track, we can tell the difference.
Yeah.
But, just the general perception, it's hard to tell the Supers and the Outlaws apart.
Right. It's a matter of, run one at the front part of the program, the other one's at the back. But then, it kind of sucks for the one at the front. But, I mean, I'll go back to the Supers. It stunk for the Supers that they had to run at the front of the program. But, get more than 6 or 7 cars, and that's not any of the fault of the 6 or 7 cars that were there. But that's where, again, I would like to see. I know there's some of those sitting in San Antonio, and maybe here in the Austin area as well. But that's where I'd like to see some of those get back out there. And a big we're doing claps earlier. Big claps to the pro stocks that showed up. I mean, I love seeing those couple pro stocks show up.
Yeah, there's a couple of those that showed up. So I thought all in all it was as good as it could be for as long as these guys were delayed in trying to get their stuff together. Hopefully the trucks end up having a better car count or better truck count at the next race when you come up on the 4th of July. But all in all, I think everything was good. I'm like you, like to see a few more super stocks out there. Outlaws, there could always be a couple of more, but that race was pretty. That race for as few cars as there was got to be pretty entertaining, especially when you see an old man like Greg Davidson mix it up with a young kid like Brandon Spreen.
And I'll tell you, it is still so incredible to see Greg Davidson get out there. I mean, we know how great he is. I mean, we've watched him forever, but just to see, I got to talk to Greg for a little bit the other night before the races, and I'll tell you what I really like is I mean, we know Greg's been through a lot, and he's been very transparent. He's talked about it on here, so I don't feel bad talking about the things that he's been through. But just to see him enjoying being at the racetrack, to see him being around people and his racing people, and to see people appreciate him. I saw the coolest picture. I think you probably saw this, Bobby, where it's a bunch of the young dudes and him, and he's sitting in his wheelchair. And I mean, that's badass. That's just flat ass badass right there.
Yeah, no, it was a picture that I got to see that I really like seeing. It just goes to show, a lot of people may still be intimidated by Greg. We were talking about it. I was talking about it up with somebody in the tower that Greg on one leg still kicking more ass than some of these people with two legs. So
yeah,
Greg's a character. I always love having Greg on the show. You never know what you're going to get, but Greg's another one of those guys. He's got a lot out of the sport, but he has given a lot to the sport too.
He really has, and it's. It was weird when he and Spring kind of got tied up a little bit there, and I saw Davidson's car kind of turn towards the inside wall. I'm thinking, oh my goodness, and it's so many different things that I'm thinking as that's happening. Did everything that Greg's dealing with there? That's not the normal cockpit in that car. And I start thinking about all this, and that's why I brought up later in the presentation there. It's like, Greg Davidson has the launch record at San Antonio Speedway. If he happens to brush the wall, I think he's going to be fine.
Yeah. I love hearing Greg tell that story too when he ended up in the parking lot.
Oh man, yes, that is a very good one. RevvedUpSportsShow.com. Find Greg Davidson, and he will tell you that story. I think he'll tell you that story anytime that you ask him. And if you catch him at the right time, he'll pull his leg off and show you that he can still get it done.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Really, really good night there at Houston. Thanks to everybody for showing up for that, because that was. Your race promoter, Gina, needed that one. And again, we're not discounting anything from the dirt tracks, but the dirt tracks have been running and have been doing extremely well. Gina was a calculated risk to put that date, June the 20th, hoping that capacity was going to be what she'd be able to have. And thank everybody that came out. I mean, it looked like old times, didn't it? I mean, it looked like
it did. It looked like there was a lot of potential. I know I saw her there I saw her for the first time about probably 6:30 was when I finally got a chance to see her. I just gave her a hug and said, "You're doing a great job." And she was kind of like, "Oh, well, this and this and this." And I told her, I said, "Look, the place is open. You've done a damn good job."
Yeah. No, absolutely. It was good stuff. And July 4th, it all happens again, and I think it's going to be a really good thing. And it's I think we're just fortunate. I think we're blessed that we have an asphalt track, and we have somebody that's willing to do it, and you got the first one out of the way. That first one's always a bitch, and it's done.
Yeah, the first one always, the anticipation is, and the build-up and everything else. Not that they get any easier, but once you get that first one in the bag, it does take a little bit of the stress off the next couple.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it absolutely does. So July 4th, hope everybody can figure out a way to get there. So if you're just checking in, if you missed the Cup race, who won? Hell, I already forgot. After talking about Freddie Fire.
Blaney.
Oh yeah, Ryan Blaney. Ryan Blaney is your winner in one hell of a finish. If you're still interested in NASCAR, go back and watch the end of that one. It was just as advertised. The finish was good, and a good dude won.
Yeah, lots of cool stuff. They saved the big ones for the end. Hopefully you got a chance. Always set your DVRs for at least an hour to 2 hours over on every NASCAR race, especially if they know that weather is going to be an issue.
Yes, absolutely, because you never know what you're going to be dealing with there. And good for NASCAR. The weather did kind of work out nice. Pocono doubleheader coming up, and we'll start getting ready to cover all of that. But great program. Love that conversation with Mark Fryer, and good to hear those old stories, and at the same time, good to hear those new stories about Jared, and looking forward to the future.
Yeah, no, Jared's one of the few diamonds in the rough, if you will. One of the kids that he's that mix of old school yet new school at the same time, but he's got a lot of old school grandpa stuck in him too.
And isn't it funny that you have that famous Fryer last name, which I think Freddie, no longer with us, obviously, but at the time we didn't have this social media driven thing that we have now. We didn't have any of this for folks to really understand what Freddie was doing with the legacy that he was building. But now, even with the talent that we see with Jared, in that legacy of his grandfather and just that rich family history that that somebody just hasn't snatched him up. That's one of those scratch your head moments, and maybe that is that he's just subdued. He just does his job. That may be part of it. You never know.
Mm-hmm. Maybe part of it, but every once in a while you see somebody catch a break and they get a ride based upon their ability. You get to see it every now and then. You got to see it with John Hunter Nemechek to a certain extent in the Cup Series. Also got to see it with the number 37 car Ryan Preece. So occasionally hard work does pay off.
Yep. Nothing but the best that we wish to our man Jared Fryer, and we will get him on here. And thanks to Mark Fryer for jumping on the program tonight. Good stuff as we come off of rain-delayed Talladega. Got to call the end of the race on here, and worked out pretty good. Worked out nice. Good timing.
Yeah, not too bad of a timing. Sometimes it works out like that.
Yeah. I was bitching about the timing when it started, and hell, now we're going to replace Mike and Jeff. Pretty good deal.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, I like that a lot. Thank you all for being a part of this. All of your archives at RevvedUpSportsShow.com. Go check them out. YouTube and Facebook, you can catch the videos. We'll be back. We have a special edition or two here coming up at some point. Hell, I'm going to the beach this weekend. That'll be fun.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. You're going to miss a little bit of racing, but hey, that's all right.
It's all good. It's all good. Bobby's down south. I am Rodney up north. Friends, be nice to someone. You never know what they're going through. You're going to feel better as well afterwards, especially now. Let's just get along. This is the Revved Up Sports Show from Texas. Catch you next time, friends.